Do you see how my skin still looks like it just has skincare on it? Like, I love how dewy this looks. I really enjoy the fact that it's not orange. Okay, why do I look like a disco ball? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, then welcome. My name's Kristina, and on my channel we talk all things beauty from my own experiences. So before you go, make sure to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave any comments that you have for me down below. Fenty Beauty just came out with brand new hydrating concealers. I got 2 shades from Sephora yesterday, and I want to try them out. We're going to do a full face of makeup, test out the wear of them, and then I'm going to give you guys my final thoughts later on. Just to give you guys a little bit of background on my skin, I do have oily, acne prone skin. Typically I would say like oily combination skin, but throughout the day I do get fairly oily in my T-zone as well as on my cheeks. This does say it's a hydrating concealer, but typically I do prefer my makeup to be more hydrated than matte. The 2 shades that I picked up, I have 295W and 300N. Fenty Beauty actually came out with graphics that showed what your shade match might be if you were a certain shade in both their skin tint as well as their Pro Filter foundation. I am shade number 11 in the Fenty Eaze Drop skin tint. I'm also shade 11 in the stick foundation, and I believe in the Pro Matte foundation. I don't have that one, but I did get shade matched at one of the YouTube events that I went to last year. I believe they shade matched me at 295, but since then I have gotten a little bit lighter in shade, so I think I still could make 295 work. Okay, so let's go ahead and read the specs of this concealer. This retails for $30, pretty expensive I will say, and they have a huge shade range. It is very extensive. They cover all of the different shades and undertones from what I can see. It's a 12-hour hydrating long wear concealer that comes in a wide range of medium coverage with a natural second skin finish. It has prickly pear cactus extract, sodium hyaluronate, Persian silk tea tree. It evens, brightens, and hides dark circles and puffiness for up to 12 hours. Extreme long wear formulation resists creasing, fading, sweat, and humidity, and won't settle into fine lines or accentuate skin texture. Plus, it's transfer and waterproof. I'm very tempted to try this out with just the concealer, like not put any base on, but honestly, I feel like most people are going to wonder what it is like when it sits on top of a foundation. So today I'm going to be using my Eaze Drop. If you guys haven't seen my video on this one, just to give you a rundown, I love this product. I use it constantly. I love the coverage of it. I think that it gives me slightly more matte coverage, which is nice because throughout the day it does start to look more like my skin because my oils do start to peek through. But overall, the longevity of this is great. It lasts me all day whenever I choose to wear this. I'm not going to put any primer. I am just going to use these 2 products as my base, and then we're going to put on the rest of the face, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. I'm just going to be taking my Morphe E63 brush. It's this little paw brush, and I love to use this to apply my foundation. And we're just going to go ahead and go in with this on the right side of the face. I already know how much coverage this usually gives me, so I have a good idea of how much to use. When it comes to concealing my acne scars and my dark circles and everything like that, I will usually go in with my Bobbi Brown color corrector. But again, today, since we are testing the concealer to see what the coverage is like and how long it lasts, I don't want anything else interfering with that. We're just gonna see how well this concealer works by itself. And I'm mainly just using this skin tint to even out the skin versus trying to use it to cover up any of my acne scarring, my dark circles, you know, all of that good stuff. I think on this right side, I'm gonna do the concealer on top of the skin tint. And then on the left side, let's do a little bit of underpainting. Let's do the concealer first on the left side and then put the skin tint on top to just kind of see what the difference is, so I can give you guys a couple of options here. I believe that 300N is going to be a match for my face, while 295W will be a match under my eyes. So let me do swatches for these real quick for you guys. Here is 300N and here is 295W. So even though this is a warm shade, I will say that it seems to pull a little bit more neutral compared to 300N, which is really interesting to me. But I'm sure on the face, both of them are going to look pretty neutral. They did seem very neutral when I compared them and I swatched them to different shades. So first, let's go in with 300N, and I'm going to use this to actually spot conceal to begin with. So I'm just going to take tiny little dabs of this all over the face, like wherever I see I have spots that I typically cover up. Like these are all areas that I would use concealer. It looks like a lot, but they're very tiny dots, and once we blend it out, it should blend out very thin, hopefully. And I'm just going to dot this around. Keep it mainly where I put it, but also just blend it out slightly. So it seems to be blending out very easily, very quickly. It doesn't seem to have any dry patches. You don't see any of the pigment just clinging on to the skin. So far, it's blending really nicely. As far as coverage goes, I definitely think that I can add a little bit more. I wanted to be a little bit more conservative with the amount that I used, and I can still kind of see some of the acne spots on my cheek right here. So I think I'm going to go in with a heavier swipe of this concealer. I want to see just how much coverage we can get out of this. So I'm going to take this, and the doe foot is really kind of cute. It's this bent doe foot. It's not curved or anything. It's like straight up bent, which is fun to me. So I'm going to take a hefty amount right there on my cheek where I tend to have a good amount of scarring. And we're going to go ahead and blend this in, kind of going and dotting and tapping, slight swiping motions here. Okay, definitely gave me a little bit more coverage. The shade kind of looks like it's a little bit gray though in that area. I'm going to take a little dot of 300N right here on my eye, because I find that when I use a shade that matches my skin tone and then use a brightening concealer, it looks a little bit more natural. It doesn't give me that weird gray undertone like peeking through. So I just took a little dot of 300N, and I'm just going to blend this in, also taking it around the nose. Taking 295W now, and I'm going to do this under the eyes and a little bit around the nose. A generous amount right there. And a little dot right there next to the nose. Wiping off my brush a little bit. And then we'll just go in and blend. I think that this is a really nice brightening shade. I don't find that it's too warm, so it's not pulling like orange under my eyes, which I really appreciate. It definitely looks brightening, but it doesn't look gray and stark. I think it looks really lovely. Just going around right here, a little darkness around the corner of my eye. All right, and just further blending what's left on my brush around the center of my face. Okay, so here is one side with the concealer and the skin tint on my face. This is what we're looking like. And here is nothing on the face. Now, let's go in with the concealer to begin with on the left side, and then we will top it with the skin tint. So again, taking the shade 300N, and I'm going to use this to spot conceal all over the face. And I want you guys to keep in mind that this is going to be darker than my actual complexion here. My foundations typically are a little bit darker than my face because I let it match my body. So I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to go ahead and take some under the eyes right here since we're going to do it anyways. I make sure that my foundations and concealers and everything match my actual body opposed to my face, because my face is quite light because I use sunscreen and reapply sunscreen every day. So naturally it's just lighter than the rest of my body. I love the way that this looks on my skin. Do you see how my skin still looks like it just has skincare on it? Like, I love how dewy this looks. The pigment isn't clinging anywhere on the face. I'm not having any trouble blending this out. If anything, it's blending a little too easily. Like, I feel like I might lose coverage, but I don't know. The more I look at it, the more coverage I'm seeing from it. This definitely seems like a concealer that you can use to spot conceal your whole face and just skip foundation altogether if you wanted to. So far, that's the vibe it's giving me. So I'm going to take 295W, and again, just taking this right here under the eye and then right there by the nose. I like this doe foot. I feel like it deposits a good amount of product. I have little dark marks, like dents on my face from my glasses. So I always try to conceal that. I really like the shade 295W as my brightening shade. I really enjoy the fact that it's not orange. Like, it's not making my under eyes look too dark, even though it's a warm shade. I have difficulties whenever my concealer is too warm and it looks like it just makes my under eyes look way darker than the rest of my face, and this is not doing that to me, which I really, really appreciate. Okay, here is this side of the face just spot concealed before we do the skin tint. I am very tempted to just leave it like this, but in the description of how to use this, they do suggest that you use it with a foundation or the skin tint or something. So I want to do what they suggest, and in the description box down below, I will update you guys when I use this just to spot conceal and I don't use any foundation or skin tint or anything with it, because I'm very curious myself. But for the the sake of this video, to show you guys how it works with like a regular face of makeup, I'm going to do the skin tint. I do have a whitehead right here, which let's go ahead and conceal. I kind of forgot about it. So I'm going to take this on my brush instead of like tapping the doe foot on that little spot. My forehead's a lot darker than the rest of my face, as you can see. That 300N looks really, really light right there. But once we do the skin tint, it should kind of blend itself out. Because we used a good amount of concealer, we don't have to use as much skin tint, I don't think. So I'm gonna just take this amount to start. My gosh, it blends straight in. That's such a good shade match, honestly. All right, here's what the face looks like on the left side with a little bit of underpainting with that concealer versus the right side where we did the complexion first with the foundation and then we went in with the concealer. Honestly, the way that it's looking, I kind of feel like this side where we underpainted with the concealer is giving me more coverage, and that makes a little bit more sense because I did use a bit more concealer on this side since I was underpainting and then less skin tint, whereas on this side we did more skin tint, less concealer. So you guys can kind of see the difference there. I feel like I could go with a little bit more concealer right here on the inner corners of my eyes, so I'm going to do that with the shade 295W. I almost feel like I could go a little bit lighter, like if I wanted an even more awake brightening shade. We'll just stick to these two and see how they do. Yeah, I like that. I really like the way that this is sitting on the skin. It definitely looks more hydrated. I guess if you like a more matte look, it can look a little bit greasy, but for me, this is how I like to start my base. I like it to look more hydrated, and then I'll use powder to kind of like mattify the rest of the face. It does say in their instructions that if you do have oily skin, to set it down with powder, specifically theirs. I don't have theirs, but I'm going to be setting my face with my Huda Beauty powder as well as my Oma Beauty because those are my tried and true. I use it with everything. So I think that'll be a good depiction on how this is going to sit on my face. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my makeup and then I'll be back with my thoughts. All right, guys, here is the full face done. I went with a very like fresh look. I did it really quickly because I'm trying to make a lunch date with my mom and my sister. So hopefully everything looks okay. I kind of messed up, okay? So I got this little Huda Beauty loose powder in the shade Peach Pie. It's the new shade. And I actually used this to set down the right side of my face. And then I realized maybe it was gonna kind of like change the tone of the concealer. So on the left side right here, I did go in with my Oma Beauty Trip and Smooth powder, which is a translucent powder. And then I used this to kind of set down the rest of my face. And then I went over it with a little bit of this powder with a little brush just to make sure that everything looked even compared to the right side. And overall, I think that the face looks really nice and bright. Now let's talk a little bit about my first thoughts on the concealer. With all of my creams going on top as well as my powders and everything, I feel like the concealer stayed in place. I don't think that it kind of like smeared all over the place and I lost coverage. I actually feel like it held on to the coverage that I put on the face at the beginning very, very well. I did not see anything that kind of like stood out to me to where I was like, oh man, you can see that spot a lot more now. I'm just trying to fix this blush real quick. I went in with my Kaja bronzer in this little trio right here in the shade number 2 Cloud Latte. I love this. It's so nice, blends like butter. Went onto the face really nicely. And then for my blush, I did use this Patrick Ta duo in the shade She's Blushing. And I think that everything is sitting really nicely on top of the face. I'm not having any issues, and I feel like this base right here is so nice. It looks very fresh and flawless for the amount of coverage that I used. I like to start off with a little bit more powder on top of a more dewy complexion because I find that my oils kind of like come through and look more natural versus if I started off super matte with a really matte concealer or really matte foundation and then mattified it with powder. Sometimes I feel like that can make my face look really crepey and a little bit more textured. I'm not seeing any areas where the concealer clung or anything like that. I think now we're gonna really see it shine with the longevity and how it lasts throughout the day, as well as how it kind of like reacts with my natural oils. So first impression, I think it looks really good, very nice coverage, as well as giving me a lot of hydration. So we don't give one over the other, you know, we get both of them at the same time, which is like my favorite thing about some concealers. My favorite concealers are very hydrating and give really good coverage, and I think this one passed those tests. I really like the color matches So if you're debating on getting this concealer, I think that if you know your shade match to the foundation as well as the skin tint, or one or the other, it's pretty good. Like, I think that it matched me very well. So I'm very happy with that. It'll make it a lot easier for you guys to purchase online if you do opt to do that. Now I'm gonna go about my day. I'm gonna go grab some lunch with my mom and my sister. Like I said, I do have an afternoon meeting, and then I'm gonna be cycling tonight. So I'm gonna keep you guys updated. I will check in throughout the day. Hey guys, so I just finished lunch with my family and I wanted to do a little check-in. It's been about an hour and a half or so since I put this face of makeup on. So let's look at what's going on. I kind of peeked in the mirror a little bit, and honestly, everything has kind of stayed put. The only thing is that I have a little bit of creasing right up here underneath my eye, and I have a little less on the left side of my face. And the reason I think that's happening is because typically the Huda Beauty one recently has been a little bit more creasy on my under eyes versus the Oma Beauty one. And like I mentioned earlier, I did set with the Oma on this side, so that's probably why we're seeing a little bit less. However, there is still slight creasing there. I really don't blame the concealer too much for stuff like that though, because when you layer on different products on top of the concealer, it can kind of like affect it. But overall, I don't think it looks bad. Let me do a little zoom in for you guys. Oh my gosh, that's really close. Okay, I hope you can see that. So some creasing right there. Let's show you guys the rest of the face while we're zoomed in already. To be honest, guys, the face is looking pretty flawless. I'm very pleased with it so far. Again, it's only been maybe like an hour, so I'd be very surprised if things were already breaking up significantly. My oils have barely started to come through. If anything, I think this is a little bit of dew from like my cream products. But overall, skin is looking flawless. I really like it. And I'll check in with you guys in another couple hours. We're gonna let this kind of like marinate on the face a little bit more, and then I'll check in with you again. Hello everybody. So it's been 4 hours now and I'm in the car again. Judd and I just stopped into Home Depot to grab some stuff. So my oils are starting to come through. Let me zoom in for you guys. All right, so oils are coming through right here on the cheeks, as you can see. But everywhere else, like the actual coverage of the concealer is doing really well. Let me turn this way so you guys can see a little bit better. Oh, hi. Yeah, I think the coverage is really good. How's your coverage? I don't think that we've lost anything. The under eyes are looking pretty good. It definitely has spread where it was creasing already, but there's no additional creasing, so I think that's important to note. Oh, I realized that I didn't set my face with any setting spray, so that is something to note. I usually do, but today I forgot. That's my second check-in for the day, so I'll check in with you guys probably in another like 2.5 hours. Whew. I will literally never doubt my setting spray again, because look at my face. Look at how oily I am. Hey guys, I'm back. It has officially been 12 hours because yes, I did skip cycling tonight. Honestly, I was thinking of you guys. I wanted to get the most wear out of this face of makeup, and I was also very lazy today. I ended up getting really lazy and I decided not to go cycle. But good for you guys, because we got a full 12 hours out of this makeup. Actually, let me take that back. Did we get a full 12 hours? Because this is looking crazy. So to give you guys a little rundown, I did not blot my face with a blotting sheet, with powder, with anything. This has been my face since this morning whenever we first put this face of makeup on. I don't think I've seen my face this shiny in so long. Like I mentioned earlier, I completely forgot to set my face with setting spray. I only set my face with some powder. I definitely would not wear this face of makeup out at this point by any means. I couldn't even tell you when my face started looking this crazy oily. I want to say the last time that I looked in the mirror was probably right before dinner, and we went to dinner around 7 o'clock, so maybe about like 8 hours in. But aside from the oils, what we're talking about today is the concealer. And if you guys need a little refresher, I did set most of this side of my face with the Huda Beauty Peach Pie loose powder, and then this side of my face with the Oma Beauty one, and I ended up dusting a little bit of this on the left side after I set it with this, just to make sure that the tone of the entire face was even. If we kind of try to ignore all the oil, which I know it's kind of difficult, the actual blush still there pretty much. I mean, it's definitely a little bit more blotchy right here. We lost some coverage from the concealer, definitely lost the coverage on this whitehead right here. I want to say I lost a little bit of coverage right here on my chin. The cheeks though, because it is kind of like layered with that bronzer as well as that blush, I feel like we didn't lose as much coverage just because we had more products to begin with. So, you know, my oils kind of had a lot more to like eat through versus like my chin where it was just the foundation, concealer, and powder. I think it's important to note the under eyes, they're looking a little bit crepey. I'll give you guys a close-up, but you can kind of see the concealer has kind of seeped into some fine lines on my right side. It would be your left side, a little bit underneath where I was seeing some creasing earlier today. We are seeing some mascara transfer. That doesn't typically happen with this mascara, but also, like I mentioned, I didn't set my face, so I'm really seeing how amazing my One Size setting spray is right now. I do feel like for the most part though, the concealer has held on pretty well. For it being a more hydrating concealer, I definitely think that it has withstood the test of time here. It's looking pretty good, and even around my nose where it's typically very red, I still see some of that concealer covering it. This combination definitely is not for my oily girls if you don't set it properly, and because of the texture of this, I think that it's going to be super creamy and really, really nice for you if you do tend to have drier skin. I think normal skin, this is going to look gorgeous. It's just going to make you look really hydrated and dewy. I really, really enjoyed the way that this looked when I first applied it to this skin, but I think tomorrow I'm definitely going to prep my skin a lot better, probably bake in some areas, and for sure I'm going to set my face with some setting spray. Mainly because it's distracting me, I'm going to blot my face with an oil sheet. I can't look at myself in the mirror like this, honestly. I just keep wanting to talk about how oily I am, so we're gonna take care of that. Oh yeah, it took everything off. Do you see that? That looks horrible. Well, since everything is coming off, should we just do a face of the concealer? I think so. Let's do that. And I'm going to take this makeup off in like 20 minutes anyways, so let's just do it. Do you guys ever just put a bunch of makeup on right before you do your skincare? Because I for sure do. I think these makeup wipes break me out. I only use these to like wipe swatches off of my hands pretty much, but it's okay. I'm gonna put some moisturizer on and give this like a fighting chance. Because I decided to be very good today, I actually washed the brushes that I used earlier, so we're just gonna go in with this double-ended Say brush. I believe it's for their bronzer. I'm going to use 300N on my spots and then mix both of these 300N and 295W underneath the eyes. So let's go ahead and do that. In terms of the way that this concealer feels texture wise, if you guys haven't watched my big comprehensive concealer video that I came out with in the fall whenever all of the brands decided to come out with concealers, go watch that one if you want to kind of know like what those textures are to me. I talked about the House Labs one, Colfi Tower 28. I think I talked about Live Tinted, Makeup by Mario, like pretty much I'm telling you guys like everything that came out around that time, and I categorized them by creaminess, by coverage, by longevity. And the best way that I can describe this one, overall, I think it has really good longevity. If you think about how oily I got, you guys, and how well this still covered, it has really good longevity. Like you would think that someone as oily as me, my face of makeup would be slipping and sliding. Granted, as soon as I used that blotting sheet, it did slip and slide, but I think that it did pretty well. I'm not gonna lie, especially for not getting set down with setting spray. Texture of it, definitely very hydrating. I would say that if you like a good hydrating concealer, this one might be right up your alley. It's super easy to blend, and I feel like I can't really go heavy-handed with this. It definitely has medium coverage, but I would venture as far to say that it's a medium to full buildable coverage, at least for the type of coverage that I prefer for my makeup. I think the texture of this is quite similar to the Tower 28 concealer. However, where I find it interesting is, from what I've gathered, the Tower 28 concealer is a water-based concealer, so that's probably why it's really lightweight and thin, so it's uber easy to blend into the skin. This one, however, is going to be that silicone base. So it has all of those silicones at the top of the ingredient list, but it still feels almost like a water-based. So that's where I think it gets interesting, because I mean, it applies super smoothly like a water-based concealer, but I think the longevity lasts and sits on the face like a silicone concealer. So in my head, you're getting the benefits of the blendability of a water-based concealer, the way that that one performs whenever you're first applying it. It goes on smooth, it doesn't cling to dry patches. It really blends in pretty much like a dream. However, you're also getting the longevity of a silicone, and it seems to like sit on top of like your fine lines. It doesn't sink into any pores. It doesn't sink into any lines that you may have, the way that silicones kind of like sit on top, you know? So I think that it's such a good mix of the two worlds, and I don't really know how they do it. I'm really not a makeup chemist or anything like that, so I couldn't tell you. All of this is just speculation. All of this is just a theory on my end, but I like it. It makes sense to me. Okay, so here are the two concealers on the face. I pretty much just did it all over my face except for my forehead. I did just leave that spot alone. Yeah, let's do a little bit of this bronzer so it looks more like a finished face of makeup, you know? Like, I love how hydrated my skin looks. I would say that it wears like the Tower 28 one. It's definitely a tinge more hydrating than the Kulfi one in my opinion. That one looks a little bit less wetness to it, you know? But I think that the coverage is very similar to the Kulfi one. It honestly powders down really nicely. This powder does not cling to the concealer. Now this is an amazing powder though, I will say. I don't typically have issues with clinging or anything like that, and I'm not seeing any sort of clinging this time either. So as you guys can see, the complexion looks pretty perfected here. You can definitely still see a little bit of my acne scarring and freckling right here on the like front of my face on this side as well, but for the most part, like this blemish right here has been covered up. The face looks nice and even. I feel like this shade match is really nice. I do really enjoy the shade match. I could definitely use these concealers as like my one and only complexion product. Like I feel like I could skip the foundation altogether. I definitely think that this is going to be exactly what it says. It's going to be very hydrating. It gives you really nice even coverage. I love how blendable this is. It's really easy to work with. I also appreciate that you don't lose any of the coverage as you're blending it out, and when you put product on top like that cream bronzer, and earlier when I put cream blush as well as powder, I don't feel like the concealer ended up moving around underneath it. I think that it held its own really nicely. I would say that this one held up, maybe not for the full 12 hours for myself as an oily person. I think that it would have been a little less oily if I had set it down and baked my face with powder instead, but I still don't think it would have carried me through to 12 hours without feeling the need to touch up. I would say I could probably get a good maybe 8 to 9 hours of wear before I feel like, okay, this is going to need a good amount of touch up, you know what I mean? And just judging based on what I've heard and what I've seen, a lot of people really do enjoy a more hydrating concealer that gives them a little bit more flexibility when it comes to coverage. This, I think, is going to be a hit. I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy this. I don't think that it creases very badly though. Now, granted, I did set it down with a powder, so I can't really say how it does by itself at this moment in time. Like I said, I will be updating the description box down below, but for the most part, I don't think that it sunk in to my fine lines super quickly the way that some really hydrating concealers can. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok because I do plan on posting some videos on there after I've worn it for a couple of days to just give you guys a little bit more information if I have any more thoughts on it. Okay guys, that was everything for this video. I hope that you found it helpful. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any additional questions for me. If you've tried this concealer out, what are your thoughts? Let me know. If you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!